What's up guys, it's your boy Malcolm Eugene, and technically I'm a supervillain. So today I'm going to show you guys how to set up your brand new A7S III for the most optimal run and gun shooting scenarios. So the A7S III is probably one of my favorite cameras that has come out thus far from Sony, and it is so because it is one of the most customizable cameras out there. You can literally customize any button on this camera to do whatever function you want it to do. But I'm going to show you guys what I have my camera set up as and why I have it set up in this particular way. Let's get into my overhead cam. So you guys will notice that the Sony A7S III has their new menu system, which is a godsend when it comes to the actual organization of everything. But we're going to go down to the utility menu and go down to operation customization. And I know I'm in photo key settings. What I actually did was I mirrored all the photo settings onto the video key settings, so just know that. Going on to the rear of the camera, my number one, which is this dial here, is ISO. So what that allows me to do is have my ISO set to its own dial, and I also have the shutter speed set to a dial, and of course on the front of the camera you have your aperture set to a dial. So everything I can change with just a couple of flicks of the finger. My ALE button, probably one of the only buttons that I have not set to what it actually is labeled, is my AF/MF toggle. So what that allowed me to do is to toggle on and off autofocus when I needed to. Of course, AF on, that's gonna stay AF on because it's just a prime location to autofocus there. My C1 button, or number 4 on there, C1, is set to my focus magnifier. Number 5, or C3, is set to AF track sensitivity. So that's basically where you can change how sensitive or responsive your autofocus is to jumping to new subjects if you're using autofocus continuous. So number 6, or the little trash can button down here, it's more of a photo thing, but I'll mention it anyway. But when you are using a wireless flash or trigger, your exposure brightens up and you're not really seeing exactly how your picture is being exposed on the back of your screen or in your viewfinder. So by hitting the shot result preview, which is what I have that set to, that'll show you your exposure for what your scene is. So let's get into more on the back of this camera here. I have my joystick here because that's actually a button you can press there. A lot of people don't know that. But that's set to focus standard. I'm able to move my autofocus pointer around. And if I'm way over here, I don't want to have to go all the way over here to recenter it. I could basically just press it and it'll recenter in the center all the time. Number 2, which is the center button here in the middle of your dial here, I have that set to switch focus area. And you probably saw that in the last one. Basically, you press that and it'll cycle through your focus areas right there. Of course, number 3 is set to drive mode because that's what it's labeled. Number 4 is set to ISO because that's what it's labeled. So number 5, I pretty much turned off the proximity sensor in here. I switched that to manual in the menus. Having the finder monitor selection here, which is the down direction on the actual dial itself. What that allows me to do is to switch between my monitor and my viewfinder. So the top, that's going to be record button. That's always going to be the record button because that's what it is a record button. I set custom button 2 to my zoom function. On my A7 III, that button's actually set to my APS-C mode, but since this is the S3 and it only has APS-C mode and 1080p, I just have this set to my zoom, my clear image zoom. And of course, the button on the lens, I have that set to autofocus, but you can set that to whatever you want. So let's get into the function menu. So the first thing I have here is peaking display. The next one over is going to be my focus mode. This is going to be changing from autofocus to manual focus. I can do that there. It's also programmed with this button here if you were paying attention earlier. Focus area, metering mode, white balance, very important. AF transition speed. This is where you're going to be able to change the speed of the transition between one subject to another. Below that, we have our zebra display. This is where you're going to have the face or eye priority track on. Audio record level, I found that to be very helpful. especially in the music festival and concert world. Touch operation, S&Q settings, picture profile, you are able to change your picture profile in here. Pretty much the only thing that's different between this and my photo function menu is that interval shooting I have up there. Other than that, record with shutter button, that's just helpful. Let's talk about picture profiles. I know there's 10 programmable slots. Well, and I've seen a lot of videos where people jump to like PP7 or whatever for S-Log3. That's fine, but I programmed all mine to the first 3 here, my primary picture profiles, because you can customize those as well. So mine is set, my first one is set to HLG3, my second one is set to S-Log3, and my third one is set to Cine 4. Cool thing about the Sony A7S III is you do have 3 custom video buttons there. So 1, 2, and 3. So my first custom video setting here is going to be 4K, 24p, 10-bit, 422, and the codec of XAVC-S. And of course, my shutter speed is set to the 180-degree rule, at least as much as these cameras will allow, and the lowest ISO setting possible. My custom shooting mode 2 is set to 4K 60 10-bit 422 XAVC-SI. So all eye compression, 600 megabits per second. This is a good compromise between wanting a higher frame rate and wanting the most available detail and data possible. So this is gonna, obviously it's gonna take up way more space on your memory cards, but this is the best that you're gonna be able to do without going out and buying the CF Express Type A cards. If you're gonna go out and buy memory cards for this camera, get V90. Yeah, you can use V60, get V90. Yeah, you can use CF Express Type A. If you're not gonna do all I120p, get the V90, because those work for 95% of the shooting modes on this camera. So my custom shooting mode number 3 is gonna be 4K 120p 10-bit 422 XAVC-S. So if you wanna shoot 1080p at 240 frames per second, you do have to make sure that you are shooting in the file format of XAVC-S HD, and then you'll be able to set your S&Q settings to 240 frames per second. It'll be at 50 megabits, but it is 10-bit 422. Another thing that I have set up here is I have my auto power off temperature set to high. Therefore, you're not running into any kind of temperature issues depending on wherever you're shooting, but I don't want any kind of limitations in that regard. Okay, so here's a throwback menu setting that a lot of people aren't talking about, but I like to throw my camera into airplane mode because I am really never in the field transferring photos or video from my camera to my phone to share instantly. So mine is set to airplane mode, therefore I can have the maximum amount of battery life to shoot what I need to shoot. So here's one thing that's pretty helpful. I go down to emphasize display during recording. What that means is when I am recording, you'll notice a red box around your screen. So basically what that is just a better visual cue of when you are recording. Helps out in a pinch. With that said, my name is Malcolm Eugene. Of course, if you liked this video, please leave it a thumbs up. If you have a different setup, please let me know your setup and why down in the description below, because I am open to see what other people are working with and why they're working with it. My name is Malcolm Eugene, bye. What's up, guys? Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. And of course, if you're viewing this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know exactly when I'm posting next.